Please join me in welcoming His Excellency Hazli Kassim.
Thank you, His Excellency Dr. Yury, GECF board members, all attendees, of course, Miss MC, and fellow Malaysians watching the broadcast webinar today. I think, again, like what has been said earlier, the discussion today mainly talking about the collaboration between government and association for sustainable and vibrant gas industry. I think this is basically the outline of my presentation or discussion today. I think the number one, in case somebody don't know, talk about Malaysia a little bit. Secondly, is more on try to show how gas is driving socio-economic growth for Malaysia. I think last year we commissioned a think tank to do a review for us. Number three is on what role that we have been playing in shaping of the national policies. Four is more on the national gas roadmap that we have been championing since 2018 to future-proof the industry in Malaysia, talking about opportunity for gas in Malaysia, and lastly, I'll close with some takeaways. I think that's the flag. So basically, Malaysia is north of Singapore and south of Thailand and to the east of Indonesia. A population about 34 million, GDP per capita about 12,500 million US dollar, with employment of about 15 million people, unemployment about 4.9%. As far as the GDP contribution in 2020, the energy sector, which in this case here includes oil, gas, and sale of electricity, contributes to about 12% of GDP in 2020, and the energy sector consistently has been contributing double-digit GDP to the whole country. The policies, Malaysia gained independence in 1957, but the main policy, the key policies of energy starting with 1974, with the Petroleum Development Act, when the Parliament vested the oil and gas exploitation right to National Oil Company of ours, is Petronas. After that, we have multiple policies. The key one that I would like to highlight, for example, that the four fuel diversification policy, where the country says oil, natural gas, coal, and hydros, those are the four fuel that the country is focusing on. I think in 93, we have the Gas Supply Act, the first one, before the amendment, and then later on we have the five fuel diversification in 1999, where we add also renewable energy. So you can see even as early as 1999, the country has thought about renewable energy, but of course at that time the progress is a bit slow, unlike now. In 2001, we established the Energy Commission Act. In this particular, so by establishing the Energy Commission, they are the regulator of the pipe gas supply network, and nowadays they also regulate all these third-party access gas terminals. Natural gas has been the single largest energy source for the country. Currently, we all talk about energy transition from oil and gas into renewable. But as what His Excellency said earlier, in the mid-80s, we started the transition from oil mainly to using a lot of gas. You can see from the early 90s, I think the red middle bar there, the gas started to surpass any other different of primary energy in Malaysia. As far as the latest 2018, gas contribute about 41% of the primary energy supply of the country. If you look at the final energy consumption, gas contribute to about 36% of the final energy consumption. But if you look at the power generation mix, to me there is a sad story a bit for the country, because now coal dominates about 47%. I think His Excellency said earlier, this region depend on coal at about 50%. Natural gas currently for the power generation about 36, used to be close to 60%, now being overtaken by coal. But later on, you can see, moving forward, the projection in 2040, natural gas will start to surpass coal again due to energy transition. The renewable contribution as far as power generation still very little, 1%, even though we're supposed to have a lot of solar. But I think lately the country in the region is focusing more on the solar. Hydropower for the country, about 16%, is mainly in the state of Sarawak, where we also now focusing on ways to produce green hydrogen from the hydropower that we have in the state. Before I talk about the socio-economic impact of gas to Malaysia, I think for Malaysia, the natural gas industry always under a lot of pressure to help the electricity tariff to be affordable to a lot of people. Because of that, our industry in Malaysia has been regulated for many years, since 1997, 98, where we had the Asian financial crisis. That is when the government started to really regulate the gas industry. But luckily, I think the last few years, the government started the market liberalization and relax all this regulation. If you look at the chart on your left, the blue line is basically the gas demand and the GDP growth for the country. And the black line is the total installed generation capacity. From the 1990s, where we started to develop our gas industry in the mid-80s, you can see the remarkable growth of the gas industry in line with the GDP growth of the country. So basically, the gas industry is supporting the GDP growth of the country. And at that time also we also built a lot of infrastructure, mainly in Peninsular Malaysia, which house about 80% of Malaysian population. As far the output impact for the country is about 37 billion ringgit, which is about 30 billion US dollar, 30 to 40 billion US dollar. Employment impact is roughly about 82,000 jobs total, direct, indirect, plus induced. The fiscal impact we predict for the next 10 years is going to be about 100 billion US dollar as far as the gas industry in Malaysia. So it's very big, very substantial. The export value historically for the last 2010 to 2017 is about 375 billion ringgit, which is close to 100 billion US dollar. This is the chart I'm showing now is the study done in 2010. Even in 2010, in the study called Roadmap for Malaysia in 2010, is that we predicted by 2016 or 17, we started to import LNG supply. That's why in this study here, it says in 2020, we are supposed to import close to 500 million scarf per day of LNG. But actually, in reality, now we are importing about 350 million scarf per day of LNG annually. The reason for that is that there are the growth assumption for diesel replacement, varies a little bit compared to the earlier assumption. But the study in 2010 also shows there is a potential, for example, from the fuel switching and, for example, for the new industries. So in 2010, the country recognized that moving forward, the indigenous gas is not enough for the whole country. We need to import more gas. And because of that, later on, you can see we started to build the regas terminal in around 2012, where we can now import the LNG through the regas terminal. We are also importing some of the gas, for example, like from Indonesia, and we also import some of the gas from the Malaysian-Thailand joint development area. So again, in 2010, the country sees there is an opportunity for us, for example, like 400 million scarf per day that will be needed by some high-value industry in Peninsular Malaysia. There's something that we can be satisfied with the importation of the LNG. Again, the chart I showed you earlier showed that how the domestic production is not enough to cater for even the existing demand. Also cannot cater for the new industries and the fuel switching. So BAU is not an option for Malaysia. Indigenous gas production offshore Malaysia is not enough. And unlike in Qatar, which has a lot of gas from the North Field, ours is the field is relatively smaller and they are in the declining stage. Also moving forward, most of our field, not only smaller, also has a lot of contaminant in it. So as a country, we already think ahead on how do we ensure that we still can use gas, but coming from other places around the world. But at the same time, we also still want to develop our local gas industry. Another problem that we have, because of the market is being regulated highly, because of that, we see that it will be challenges for us to develop the remaining reserve, which is smaller and high level of contaminant. And also this very cheap and subsidized gas attract a lot of industries that don't use gas efficiently. Because so as much as early as 2010, the government has identified that we have to liberalize the gas market, but we want to do it gradually. We know that without the right pricing, the ability to bring new field into production will be impeded. I think another thing also, like I said earlier, the industry that we bring in, because we were marketing the country more of like a cheap energy source, we bring industry that is not energy efficient, don't want to use technology. So not in line with the growth of the country. That's why moving forward, the country decided that we have to go to market liberalization. But again, from when that policy was formulated to now, one thing that has remained constant in general is the gas association like us. So from beginning, we've been championing that, yes, the country has to go towards market liberalization so that across the gas value chain, the growth will be healthy. And we have been telling the government that industries built on the premise of cheap gas will not be sustainable over the long run. Frankly speaking, even now, we still have investors sometimes come for cheap gas. It is something that we have been diligently educating them that, we are no longer selling the country on the basis of cheap gas. It's more on we would like to attract good investors who want to invest in the country because of the efficiency that we can offer the investors. For us to do the market liberalization, which I said when I said the idea started in 2010 also, there are several building blocks that need to be in place. If you look at the green building blocks, those are the ones that we have completed. If you look at the yellow block, is the one that we are still progressing. I guess the easy one is to amend the Gas Supply Act in 93 to include the third-party access. It's something that we did recently a few years ago. We also strengthened the Energy Commission that we established somewhere in 2001, so that now they can also regulate the whole third-party arrangement. We also built regas terminal. I think the first one we built in Malacca around 2012, and the second one we built completed recently a few years ago somewhere in Johor, which is close to Singapore. And pricing, natural gas price liberalization, because it impacts the industry and the common people, is something that is more gradual being done. But I must say that as far as the industry is concerned, in general, we are moving in a direction in most of the segments already there, except for one, which will be fully liberalized by the end of the year. As far as the pricing for the power sector, that is something I would say still pseudo liberal, because still not 100% willing buyer, willing seller yet. We started to bring in a lot of multiple supplier, just that for now there is not enough buyer. There's only one buyer for the power. We'd like to introduce a bit on the gas delivery infrastructure in Malaysia. I think if you look at in Peninsular Malaysia to your left, there is two photo there that says LNG going into the country. Those are the regas terminal. The one on the left of Peninsular Malaysia is in Malacca, and the one next to Singapore is regas terminal Pengerang. The line there is basically on the Peninsular Malaysia, it is Peninsular Gas Utilization Pipeline. If you look at to the east, Bintulu, which used to be I think the biggest single site LNG producer in the world, but now I think maybe the fifth largest LNG exporter. And that is the line that you see there is Sabah and Sarawak gas pipeline, where gas from Sabah goes to our LNG plant in Bintulu. If you look at the state in Sabah, they utilize a lot of this micro LNG in order to supply the industries. So in the past, for example, like when we build the Peninsular Gas Utilization Pipeline, the VPS was not matured, so you really dependent on the pipeline. Nowadays, if you have good roads, we can supply LNG or CNG through VPS. To me, that is what a good gas technology bring to the people, provide energy access to a lot of people in hard-to-reach areas. What has been our role in shaping the policy of the country? Again, this is like to share again, the mission is to promote the advancement of a sustainable Malaysian gas industry through advocacy, communication, education on behalf of its member and nation. We from the beginning, from the founding of our association, we advocate advocacy, communication, and education, not about confrontational. So we always like to discuss with the government. This is our members. We have close more than 110 corporate members. Our members is covered across the value chain from upstream, midstream to downstream. We also even have a bank being one of our member. Like I said earlier, we like to collaborate. We like to collaborate with the government of Malaysia. We have been recognized as the voice of the gas industry in Malaysia. Currently, we are on more than 5 national level committees to help the government on some of the policies on gas, some of the studies, some of the reviews. So we support the government in shaping of policies through participation in this national level committee. So far, we have been engaging policymakers to advocate the gas market liberalization, greater utilization of gas, enhancing role of gas in energy transition, vibrant gas industry to drive economy, investment, and employment. I think, as you all know, energy transition is the buzzword of the day, but how to get there is something that we as a gas industry need to educate the public and the policymakers. It's not as easy that you flip the switch, you move from the fuel and energy to renewable energy. And gas is the cleanest fossil fuel that can help us to transition and be the destination fuel, like what the MC said earlier, in the world where people use a lot of this renewable energy. So far, based on the thing that we have been working on the government for the last couple of years, gas market liberalization is staying on course. So far, it has survived 2 change of government. So far, and last year, government has we have started to work with the government to draft the national gas roadmap. And so far, on the national energy policy that we are still working on to finalize with the government, gas is recognized as a critical fuel in this national energy policy. And like His Excellency stated earlier also, last year, we organized the first ever virtual IEF-IGU ministerial gas meeting in December of 2020, where we have a good number of attendees from the government and from the industries. On the international level, we are a member of International Gas Union and sit on the executive committee and as the regional coordinator of South and Southeast Asia, which hosts about 1/3 of the world population. We organized the IGU presidency for triennium of 2010-2012, and maybe some of you guys were here in 2012 where we organized the World Gas Conference. The current IGU president is the past speaker of GECF or speaking session with Dr. Jo M. Kang from Korea with the theme of a sustainable future powered by gas. How does natural gas roadmap can help to future-proof the industry? This is something that I said earlier, the national energy policies. This is something that is being driven by the government. We as an association, we help to support the government. The aim for now is to be launched in the second half of 2021. The aim is to ensure a subsector energy development is in line with the global trend. I think like I said earlier, when we did the transition from mainly oil to gas, we had the gas master plan. And for example, the gas master plan identified building of PGU pipeline so that the gas can be utilized more in Peninsular Malaysia. And just a bit of background, Peninsular Malaysia produces about 3 BSCF of gas per day, state of Sarawak about 5 BSCF of gas per day, and state of Sabah about 1 BSCF per day. Peninsular Malaysia has about 80% of the Malaysian population. This national energy policy, we hope, will address on how do we, be ready for this renewable energy? How do we encourage the investment in renewable energy? But at the same time, how do we adapt our local indigenous oil and gas industry to this energy transition? So far, what we see that, and a lot of experts around the world have been saying that oil and gas sector will remain as a significant source of energy in the foreseeable future, at least in the 2050. And natural gas will play an even more critical role in facilitating energy transition. You know, later in the next few slides, I will share, for example, we forecast natural gas in our power sector will triple from the current volume by the year, I think, 2040, while we transition out from coal for our power generation. We developed with the government the natural gas roadmap, which we want to identify the new growth areas at the same time to ensure a sustainable gas industry in Malaysia. When I say a sustainable gas industry in Malaysia, it also includes upstream. We really want to continue to develop our upstream gas industry, which provides an important feedstock to our petrochemical industry that depend on all these C2, C3, and C4 coming from our indigenous fields. You know, while market liberalization and LNG import bring in energy security for the power sector, for example, but this LNG gases doesn't have enough C2, C3, or C4 to support our petrochemical industry. So as a country, that's why as an association, we also work with the government. We tell the government, you need to help, you need to protect the local industry so that it can still feed the petrochemical industry, which provide a significant foreign exchange for the country. This natural gas roadmap is something that I've said earlier in terms of developing our gas field, and I think Prime Minister also mentioned at the last December at the forum. And we want to, again, to promote a wider utilization of gas. We want to ensure security of supply and access to cost competitive gas. Imagine as a country where we depend on a lot of gas before this, when we did not have the regas terminal. So imagine if suddenly, you know, our supply from our offshore is interrupted. Now, with the building of regas terminal, the energy security of the country, inshallah, is secured. And moving forward, as an association, as a country also, we would like to position gas to achieve the range of objectives along the energy trilemma that His Excellency said earlier. So for all energy industry or energy producing countries and in any country around the world for that matter, is that balancing the energy trilemma is something that is not easy and is very critical. Future opportunities for gas in Malaysia, again, like I said earlier, is that poster on the right is, you can say, is poster that we produced in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, in a local newspaper to show that why the country need to have a natural gas roadmap. Because again, like I said earlier, we built a roadmap in mid-80s. We've gone through the roadmap. I must say we are at the end of that earlier roadmap. That's why we need to build a new roadmap to ensure that it is still sustainable for many years to come. We still recognize natural gas to maintain its significant contribution as an energy policy, as a source of energy in the national energy policy. I think it's something that we've been working with the government, and based on the thing that we work so far, we are very sure that it is recognized as an important energy source for the country. But it is a balancing act for the country and for an association is, you know, between energy security and affordability. How to ensure people to come and invest in the Malaysian oil and gas sector, including the upstream, to sustain indigenous resources and the domestic petrochemical industry. But at the same time, how do we allow the third party to come in with LNG so that if they can be more competitive, they can supply, you know, competitive energy for our industries. But again, for us to transition from regulated to liberated gas market, it is something that has to be smooth without a lot of interruption to the way of doing things, to the incumbents and to the new players. As I said earlier, in 2018, we started to call for a natural gas roadmap. Alhamdulillah, sometime in 2020, as a country, we started to work on this with the government, how to produce the roadmap in conjunction also with the national energy policy. You know, from here I can show that collaboration between government and the association is important to ensure aspirations are realized. One of the impact of natural gas market liberalization, like I said earlier, will attract new players to the gas market, and inshallah will create more upstream investment. Third-party access create new supply option, also further enhancing security. It will lead towards vibrant and sustainable industry. But at the same time, also, for example, there are some investment or position that the incumbent have taken. That is something that we are so mindful of. That is something that we give feedback to the government. So how do we do it at the same time not to interrupt, I guess, the status quo too much and to ensure the investment by the earlier investors. We believe that a vibrant gas industry in Malaysia will encourage further investment, healthy investment across the value chain, will lead to more job creation and economic growth. And like I said earlier, instead of in the past, we focus on cheap energy. Moving forward, we like to focus more on sustainable energy and energy that create job, high value job, and good economic growth for the country. So we still advocate staying on course towards full market liberalization by organizing a lot of sharing session and learning similar to GECF. I think very soon we're going to do a third-party access roundtable series where we have a lot of parties. We discuss and communicate with the policymakers on, highlight what are the challenges and how do we resolve the thing. And for us, to really achieve the full market liberalization, it will take many years as we learn. My colleague from UK told me it takes about 13 years for them to achieve full market liberalization. We are hoping we can achieve earlier. But of course, we want to do it in a form and shape that fits our, I guess, local scenarios. For us, we think renewable gas is expected to form part of the vibrant industry in the future. But as we speak right now, natural gas is still about 90% of energy supply to the world. Actually, in 2021, we projected in Malaysia for combined gas and RE to increase by more than 11 gigawatt, while coal will decline by more than 4 gigawatt by 2039. Now, as a result, gas demand will increase threefold, while carbon emission intensity is set to reduce by more than 60% within the same period compared to the 2005 level. They just show, for example, by using the cleanest fossil fuel like natural gas, it will help to clean the carbon emission intensity. Let me just close by stating a couple of key takeaways again. Number one, a clear and comprehensive national energy policy supported by a vibrant gas industry is vital for Malaysia's economic growth and aspiration. The natural gas roadmap sets path towards a vibrant and sustainable gas industry by ensuring security of supply, healthy demand, spurring investment, and positioning gas to address the energy trilemma. As the lead advocate, which is what we have been doing, MGA will continue to play a proactive and collaborative role to support to realize the national aspirations. Like I mentioned earlier, we are on at least 5 national level committees where we help the government on certain policies. We collaborate with the government. We highlight the plight of the industries. We highlight what the industry need. And similar to GECF, annually we produce oil and gas outlook, which at least in the past has been used as a reference by some of the key ministries. I think that is the end of my presentation. I pass it back to Ms. MC for any discussion or Q&A. Thank you.
Well, Your Excellency, thank you so much for very multifaceted, industry-wide, and very, very precise presentation and the speech. It's very important for us to learn about these insights in terms of national energy policy, natural gas roadmap, and its principles and goals, outlook for the natural gas in Malaysia, and more generally, of course, respective support at various levels towards natural gas as a key contributor to energy transition. Basically, I was thanking you for this very intense and precise presentation. This is very important for us to know those insights about your outlook for natural gas in Malaysia, about the policy support towards the source. And of course, we completely share your views towards the attributes of natural gas and towards its promising future in terms of participation and its contribution in energy transition.